Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely rebuild your understanding of a chemical you've probably heard about a million times, dopamine. We hear the word thrown around absolutely everywhere these days, right? Usually, it's used as this kind of vague buzzword for pleasure or maybe addiction. But listen, if we want to truly understand our own motivation, our habits form, and honestly, why we do the things we do, we really need to move past these pop science cliches. So, we're going to strip away all the confusion today. We're going to look at dopamine from first principles and turn what is often a highly misunderstood chemical into a perfectly clear, useful concept that you can actually apply to your daily life. Okay, let's dive into this. What if dopamine doesn't actually make you happy? I mean, that is a massive pattern interrupt, isn't it? What if literally everything you've been told about dopamine is slightly backwards? You see, we've been conditioned to think of dopamine as this tiny little button in our brains that, when pressed, just floods us with joy. But actually, scratch that, that idea is entirely too small. If you've ever found yourself wondering why you still feel so empty after scrolling on your phone for an hour, or why chasing after certain rewards just leaves you feeling completely flat, well, this exact question completely shatters that illusion. We're dealing with a major difference between myth and reality here. The myth, as you know, is that dopamine is a pure pleasure reward, the so-called happiness chemical. But the reality is far more fascinating. Dopamine is actually a decision-shaping signal. It's not the thing you want. Rather, it's the system that helps your brain decide what to want, what to learn from, and what to pursue next. So think of it less like a reward itself and much more like a biological system for prioritization. Now, this single quote basically anchors everything we're talking about in this explainer. Dopamine is not the brain's happiness chemical, it is the brain's "this matters, pay attention" system. I'm actually going to repeat that because it is just so foundational. It is the "this matters, pay attention" system. Once you really internalize this concept, a lot of your everyday behavior is going to start making complete sense. Think about procrastination or sudden cravings, or why some goals feel incredibly energizing while others just feel like a chore. All of that traces directly back to what your brain is actively marking as important. To make this abstract idea incredibly concrete, I want you to think of dopamine as the office messenger in a massive corporate network. You see, the brain isn't just a single thinker. It's this vast network of cells that are constantly sending messages to each other. And in this busy office, dopamine isn't the CEO running the whole company. Not at all. Instead, it works way more like a priority memo. A simple, small note from the messenger can completely redirect the attention, the effort, and the planning of the entire team. It tells other brain systems what deserves more processing right now. It's basically saying, hey, move toward this, instead of saying, hey, this already feels good. Because, let's face it, your attention is highly limited. Your brain cannot possibly process everything happening around you all at once, so it has to rank things. It constantly asks, is this urgent? Is it worth remembering? Is it worth repeating? Or, can it just be ignored? Think of it like walking through Lahore's bustling Honor-Kali Bazaar. The shopkeepers are constantly calling out to you from every direction, right? Now, they aren't actually handing you the goods. They're just calling out to guide your attention toward what looks or feels promising. Dopamine acts exactly like those shopkeepers. Or, if you prefer, think of it like a bright yellow highlighter on a page of dense notes. It doesn't write the ideas, but it jumps out and tells you, come back here. This part matters. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound difference between wanting and liking. And guys, this is exactly where so many people get stuck. Wanting is that feeling of being pulled towards something, and dopamine is strongly, strongly involved here. Liking, on the other hand, is actually enjoying the thing once you finally have it. And surprisingly enough, that is not dopamine's main job. This vital separation explains exactly why a person can fiercely crave something or feel completely compelled to do a specific action without actually liking it very much once they finally get it. Let's bring that idea to life for a second. Imagine you are waiting in a crazy long line for a world-famous dessert. Your anticipation is just intense. You're planning for it, you're obsessing over it, and honestly, that waiting period actually feels incredibly energizing. Your dopamine is totally spiking. But then, you finally reach the front of the line, you take a bite, and the actual taste is just kind of average. It's fine, but it's not mind-blowing. That gap right there, between the intense, energizing wait and the very average reality of the taste, shows exactly why dopamine isn't pleasure. It's the engine that's driving the pursuit. And that brings us to a really fundamental concept of how dopamine shapes our behavior: prediction error. Basically, your brain is constantly, subconsciously, comparing what it expected to happen with what actually happened. Think of a local tea seller who is tweaking his recipe based on customer feedback. If the tea is too sweet, he reduces the sugar tomorrow. Not strong enough, he adds a few more tea leaves. Dopamine acts as exactly this kind of learning update system. If reality turns out to be better than expected, boom, dopamine signals a positive update. If it's worse, it updates differently. It is constantly, endlessly adjusting the recipe for your future actions. So how exactly does this build into our daily routines? Well, through those prediction errors, the brain learns how to build automatic habits. If a behavior repeatedly seems to be useful, the brain starts to learn a reliable pattern. 1, this cue matters. 2, this action works. 3, this outcome is totally worth expecting. And once that pattern is fully learned, the brain doesn't have to work as hard. It uses way less energy to make that exact same decision the next time around. That is precisely why habits feel so automatic to us. It's not magic, it's simply dopamine-linked learning marking a specific pathway as highly valuable. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolute most fascinating quirks of the human brain: anticipation versus arrival. Sometimes what really drives us isn't the reward itself at all, but the mere expectation of the reward. Picture getting a delivery notification on your phone. The package itself isn't actually inside the notification, obviously, but the notification prepares you. It immediately redirects your attention, and it shapes your very next move. Quite often, the anticipation of seeing a message preview pop up feels far more stimulating than the act of actually opening and reading the message. Dopamine creates that loop because it's in the business of processing possibility. But here's the catch. Anticipation can easily be exploited into what we call sticky loops. Doom scrolling, repeated checking, compulsive snacking, chasing novelty. Think of a university student in Lahore who is just trying to sit down and study, but their eye keeps darting to that tiny red notification badge on their phone. That badge is a cue. Dopamine makes it feel incredibly urgent. It literally overrides everything else they're trying to do. The brain relentlessly, rapidly asks for one more look, just one more try, one more quick hit of possibility. And before you know it, the wanting system has completely outgrown the liking system. So, the absolutely crucial point we need to take away is this. Dopamine is shaped by context, not just by chemistry alone. And honestly, it is so empowering to realize that dopamine isn't just some fixed trait you are simply stuck with for life. Your brain's dopamine signaling changes based on your expectations, the level of uncertainty, the specific cues in your environment, and any visible progress you're making. Think about it. A task can feel completely impossible in one room, but totally manageable in another, simply because the environmental cues changed your brain's estimate of the value and the effort required. Even tiny, small signs of progress tell the brain, hey, this is moving, which actively raises your dopamine and increases your motivation. You have the power to actively change your behavior simply by changing your environment. As we wrap up this explainer, you now have the clarity to look at your behavior as a brilliant learning system rather than some frustrating mystery. Remember, dopamine is not the brain's happiness switch. It is the brain's meaning and pursuit signal. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question. It's a highly actionable tool you can use today to observe your own "this matter" system in real time. The very next time you find yourself automatically reaching for your phone, I want you to pause for just a second and ask yourself, what cue is my brain learning right now? Is this about wanting, or am I actually liking this? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. See you on the next explainer.